Moving on can be tricky. That's why today we're going to go through the grief cycle and the 5 steps of the grief cycle. Now, it doesn't matter if you're the toughest criminal in the world, you've killed people, you're a murderer, you're a rapist, whatever the case may be, or you're the toughest bikie, or you're the craziest, base jumper, skydiver, motorbike rider, extreme rider, or you're just the everyday person that does the 9 to 5, or your little granny that stays at home, grandfather that's in a nursing home. We all have the same 5 stages of grief, which we're going to go through. Now, number 1 first is the event. So the event happens. Let's just say a pandemic, or you lose your job, or you lose a loved one. That's an event. Okay, that's an event. Now, an event that goes through grief would be something that's kind of, gives you shock. You're very shocked. You lost your job. Fuck. Right? We're in a pandemic, in this pandemic of C-vid, right? It's first you'll get shock. Okay? You'll get some anxiety, stress. You become very emotional. And you have some denial. You'll be like, is this really happening? No way. No way this can be happening. I can't lose my job. I thought I had this job forever. Oh my God, we just broke up. I can't believe we broke up. I can't believe what he did to me. Can't believe what she said. Right? That's denial. Then we have some fear in here, which, as we know, during this pandemic, it's just full and packed of fear. Pumped of fear. Okay, we're all walking around with our masks, right? So there's a lot of fear, a lot of confusion. Okay, a lot of confusion around, like, fuck, is this really happening? How does this all work? Do the shots work? Are they actually going to work? Right? And then people that have had the shots are in denial that possibly they don't work so good. Okay? And then avoidance. A lot of people, and mind my handwriting because I only just passed school, but anyway. So then there'll be some avoidance, avoiding the truth, avoiding those uncomfortable feelings of what gets resonated and comes from this event. We like to avoid anxiety and stress. We like to avoid the fear. And how do we like to avoid it? We like to distract ourselves. We like to distract ourselves generally with some pleasure. And what can pleasure be in forms of? Drugs, alcohol, sex, a new car, sports, going to the beach, going to the gym 7 days a week. Whatever it may be, we like to avoid it. Okay? Then number two on the grief cycle is anger. Now, anger, as you know, when you go from that shock, you're kind of just in that anxiety, you're shocked, I can't believe that happened. And then the next stage happens, maybe a few hours later, maybe a few days, maybe a few weeks, right? Maybe even a few months. You start to become angry. Fuck, I can't believe this happened. I can't believe she did that. I can't believe what this government is doing to us, right? You get in that anger. And you start to become irritated and frustrated with the situation. Like, I just wish this didn't happen. I wish this event did not happen. You're kind of in the middle of 1 and 2 through the avoidance, the confusion, the denial. You wish that this didn't happen. Then we go to 3. Now 3 is bargaining, right? And bargaining is kind of struggling to find meaning. You're kind of like, how did this happen? You're in between being angry, shocked, anxiety, emotional, fear. You're struggling. How did this happen? And how did this pandemic happen? Who's responsible for this virus? Right? You're trying to make meaning of this. Why are we locked down? Why do we need the curfews? We're trying to make meaning. Maybe you've lost your loved one. Like, how did they die? I can't believe it. How did they fall off their motorbike? Or how did they overdose on drugs? Or how did they neck themselves? Whatever it is, we're trying to find meaning. An example of this is, why is this happening? Why is this happening to me? Right? You see that all the time. You hear it all the time. Why is this happening to me? I wish it could be different. And you're kind of going from 1, 2, 3. You're kind of going in between that shock, anxiety, denial, fear, confusion. You're angry. You're fucking frustrated. You're irritated. Then you're kind of like struggling to make meaning. You're just like, how did this fucking happen? And then through 1, 2, and 3, we move to 4. Now 4 is where we become depressed, overwhelmed. We feel helpless and we become kind of hostile and sadness takes over. And mixed between kind of 1, 2, 3, 4, it's not the greatest place to be, right? Because, anger, depression, sadness, fear, shock, your vibration has been lowered. Okay, you're in a low vibrational state. Now in this state, you're not going to attract great things when you're kind of in this 1, 2, 3, 4 stage, right? You're in a high emotional state of negativity, right? There's a lot of sorrow, a lot of anguish. You're very angry. You're not great to be around. You're very irritated, sadness. It's not the greatest place to be. But it's very normal. As I said at the start of the video, is that it doesn't matter if you're the hardest criminal, the biggest bikie, or you're the most extreme sport, or you just do your 9 to 5, or you're just the grandma and grandfather at home. It doesn't matter who you are. We all go through these five grief cycles, okay? Now, number 5 is acceptance, okay? Acceptance. The quicker we can accept the event, the quicker we come out of the grief cycle, okay? Number 5 would be, you start to explore new options, okay? You start to move on. Now, when you're in this stage, you're nowhere near accepting of exploring new options and, moving on. You you need to go through the emotions of anger, anxiety, emotional confusion. Why is this happening to me? Just being depressed and sad, right? Spending a whole day of crying, maybe 2 weeks of crying, right? Before we'll actually accept. And some people, it takes literally weeks, months, years, a whole lifetime, and they never accept the actual event of what happened, okay? And they never actually fully move on and explore the new options in life. And, it's normal, but it's not a great place to be. And we can come out of it. We can come out of it. And there's proof of many people in life have came out of, very situations of death, lost their jobs, gone through divorces, all that kind of stuff. So basically the quickest way, through this time, maybe it's a divorce, maybe you've lost your business, maybe, just this whole pandemic of C-vid has put you through these steps of 1, shock, anxiety, stress, denial, fear. And then you've got the anger, the irritation, the frustration. Then you go down to 3, you're bargaining. Why did this happen? You're struggling to make sense. You're like, fuck, right? Then you go to 4, you're depressed, you're overwhelmed, and, depressed, helplessness, shock, anxiety, anger, all mixed together, your emotional state is so low. And as we know, Tony Robbins, my mentor, says, the quality of your life is determined where you live emotionally, right? Where you live mentally and emotionally. So where's your emotional home, right? If you're living in 1, 2, or 3, it's not going to be great. Right? You're in that grief cycle. Now we must go through the grief cycle. No one is exempt of the grief cycle. Even our Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, who just got an exemption to fly his private jet to see his family while we're all locked down for the last 12 weeks in Sydney alone, over 200 days in Melbourne. Don't worry, Mr. Morrison, it's okay, you got an exemption. But unfortunately, no one is exempt of the grief cycle. Nobody. Now, we all go through it in different stages. Some people go through the shock, anxiety, and they get in the anger, the bargaining, the depression, and they kind of stay in here. you would know these people. They're kind of depressed, they're angry, they're anxious, they're stressed, they're kind of confused. They're struggling to accept that this is how life is now. You know, what has happened to them, whether it's a divorce, you've lost your job, you know, coronavirus, whatever it is. Okay, a lot of people get stuck in here. So the quickest we can go from the event to the acceptance. Now, it's okay to feel this, but try not to go so deep into getting stuck in day after day. Why is this happening to me? Why? Right? The quicker we can go, kind of like this, you know, from here, and you feel the anger, and you come out to bargaining, and you kind of come out quicker, right? And then once we get good at it, we realize we need to accept. It's a part of life. As soon as it happens, you realize, shit, I'm going to have to accept this, right? This isn't no fairy tale dream where I just get out of this unscathed and we don't go through these emotions, right? And we don't lose our job, or, you know, we're not going to have to find someone else, another partner or another business, or start a business again, or whatever it is. You can't avoid it, right? It's the truth. It doesn't matter how much alcohol you want to drink or take drugs and avoid your problems. You'll never avoid the grief cycle. You have to feel it. But we don't have to get stuck in here. We don't have to get stuck. Okay? We can move in. Sometimes you go back, but we can go out. To accept, to explore new possibilities and move on. So the quicker we can go from the event to acceptance, the quicker that we move on to something bigger and better in our lives. Hope this is making sense, guys. So if that helped, you know, please comment, like, and share. And I hope you're having a great day. And as always, much love and always rise above.